Don't hurt me. I can't walk. The words came out like a broken whisper, barely louder than the wind that pushed dust across the cracked pavement.
I won't hurt you.
It was late morning, the sun already high, casting sharp shadows across the nearly empty street. People passed by without noticing her at first, a fragile woman sitting on the ground beside a bus stop bench, her hands trembling as she tried to shield herself from a man shouting angrily nearby. Everything about the moment felt wrong. Her voice wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It wasn't meant to attract attention. It was the quiet, desperate plea of someone who had already lost too much. And that was the moment that changed everything. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories That Matter. Your support helps keep these real, emotional stories alive. The street was alive with daylight movement, vendors arranging fruit under striped umbrellas, school children laughing in the distance, cars passing with no urgency. Life was moving forward for everyone. Except for her. Her name was Marisola Vega, and for the past 3 years, the world had moved on without her. Once, she had been a dance instructor. Her days were filled with music, movement, and laughter. She had lived in rhythm, literally. But a car accident on a bright afternoon had shattered not just her spine, but the entire structure of her life. The driver who hit her never stopped. Recovery was supposed to be temporary. The doctors had promised improvement. But improvement never came. Instead came hospital bills, mounting debt, and eventually, abandonment. The fiancé who once promised forever slowly faded away. Friends became fewer. Calls stopped. And eventually, so did the money. Now she moved with difficulty using crutches on good days, and on bad days, like today, she couldn't stand at all. The man yelling at her wasn't a stranger. He was her landlord. The rent was 3 months overdue. And today, he had come to collect. Marisola hadn't planned to beg. Pride had kept her silent for weeks. But when he grabbed her arm and demanded she get up and leave the apartment she could barely afford, panic took over. She had nowhere to go. Nowhere. Across the street, Rowan Hale had just finished dropping his 7-year-old daughter Amaya at school. Rowan was used to chaos, but not the loud kind. His chaos lived in quiet routines. Packing lunches at dawn. Braiding hair before work. Remembering allergy medicines. Checking homework. Being a single father wasn't the life he had imagined. But after losing his wife during childbirth, imagination had stopped mattering. Only survival remained. Rowan worked as a furniture repair technician, fixing what others threw away. It was ironic in a way, his entire life revolved around restoring broken things. And that morning, he almost kept walking. He heard the raised voice. He saw the woman on the ground. But like everyone else, he hesitated. Until he heard the words. Don't hurt me. I can't walk. Something inside him shifted. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even sympathy. It was recognition. Because he knew that tone. He had heard it once in a hospital room, when his wife had realized she wouldn't make it. That same quiet fear. Rowan crossed the street without thinking. The landlord's voice faltered when Rowan approached, not aggressively, but steadily. Rowan didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He simply stepped between them and asked what was happening. Within minutes, the situation de-escalated. The landlord, embarrassed by the attention now gathering, muttered warnings about eviction and walked away. But the damage was already done. Marisola was shaking. Her hands wouldn't stop trembling. Rowan crouched beside her, noticing how carefully she held her body, like even breathing might cause pain. He learned her name. Learned she lived 2 blocks away. Learned she had no family nearby. And learned, most importantly, that she hadn't eaten since the day before. The world didn't change in that moment. No dramatic music played. No instant miracles happened. But Rowan did something simple. He helped her up. Getting her home was slow. Painfully slow. Every step was effort. Every movement was calculation. Her apartment was small and worn, sunlight leaking through thin curtains, revealing peeling paint and carefully maintained neatness that spoke of dignity despite hardship. Rowan left after making sure she was settled. He didn't promise anything. Didn't make speeches. He simply said he would check on her later. That evening, he returned with groceries. And the next day, he came back with a repaired chair she could use to move around more easily. Then he fixed a broken cabinet. Then the door hinge. Then the leaky sink. What started as concern became routine. Amaya began coming along too, her laughter filling the quiet apartment. And slowly, something returned to Marisola that she thought was gone forever. Not hope. Not yet. But connection. Still, the looming eviction remained. The landlord wasn't cruel, just tired of waiting. And Rowan couldn't afford to cover months of rent on his modest salary. For weeks, tension hung in the background of their growing friendship. Marisola began withdrawing again, her anxiety returning. She knew kindness had limits. And she didn't want to become a burden. But Rowan had spent years learning something important. Broken things weren't useless. They just needed a different purpose. One afternoon, while Amaya practiced her reading aloud, Rowan noticed something. Marisola's eyes followed the rhythm of the child's movements. Her hands tapped lightly against the armrest, instinctively. Muscle memory. Dance hadn't left her. Her legs may not have worked the way they once did. But her understanding of movement remained. An idea began forming. It started small. A conversation with a community center manager. Then another with a local physical therapy group. Within weeks, Rowan helped organize a daytime movement class for individuals with limited mobility, designed and led by Marisola. It wasn't charity. It was purpose. The first session had only 3 participants. The second had 5. By the 4th week, the room was full. People came not just for exercise, but for understanding. Marisola's voice grew stronger. Her posture lifted. Her laughter returned. And something remarkable happened. She stopped introducing herself as someone who used to dance. Now she simply said she taught movement. The income wasn't large. But it was enough. Enough to negotiate with the landlord. Enough to regain control. Enough to live. Rowan never took credit. He continued fixing furniture, packing lunches, and braiding Amaya's hair. Life didn't become perfect. But it became stable. And sometimes, stability is the greatest miracle of all. One bright afternoon months later, Marisola stood, briefly, during a class demonstration using support bars. It lasted only seconds. But the room fell silent. Not because she had stood. But because of what it represented. She wasn't defined by what she couldn't do. She was defined by what she continued to give. Near the end of this story, if it has touched your heart in any way, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Stories That Matter. Your engagement helps bring more real stories of compassion into the world. Because sometimes, change doesn't come from wealth or power. Sometimes it comes from someone simply choosing to stop walking past. Before we close, we have a special request. Please comment the word kindness if you believe small actions can change someone's entire life. The day Rowan heard those trembling words, he didn't know he was stepping into someone else's turning point. He just knew he couldn't keep walking. And because he stopped, a woman who once begged not to be hurt found a reason to stand again. Not alone. But supported. Not by miracles. But by humanity. And sometimes, that is enough to change everything.